Hello and welcome to Flashback, the games you love, the stories you forgot. This is episode 33, and this week we're in January 1993. I'm RGT, and as always, I am joined by UCP George. How you doing, George?
Where's my intro?
Didn't write one.
Okay. A guy with a bigger nose, a guy with a massive nose, but loves F19 by MicroProse. It's UCP George. How you doing? I'm good. Yeah. Fired up to get a little bit of 1993 in my life. Fired up to see you. Obviously, this is the audio episode, so people aren't, they don't get to see as often the updates of your rapidly expanding facial hair that you've got going on. As I called you on the main show, Lidl's version of Chopper. But I'm ready to kind of drop them like it's hot and get into this like it's 1993.
Drop them like it's hot. Yeah, so like I say, January 1993. One of the older ones we've done, but still no shortage of games here that we hopefully would have been playing. If you're new to the show, welcome along. Thanks for listening, downloading. Our format is we will list a few games we probably would have been playing back in the day, 3 news stories from the time, bit of an old UCP legend Stingray turns up, and we see what we'd hopefully be playing in the following weeks, and we finish with about a housekeeping and even a movie pick from Stingray's boot. But let's
They
get back
better
on.
start appreciating the Ray here, because I'm starting to hear some clamours that Ray needs to go back on the main show.
Really?
Oh,
Mm.
oh yeah. King Ray will save us all.
Yeah, thank God for Ray. So January 93 then, George, what would you have been playing off this list then?
Every other game on here kind of falls into insignificance next to this legendary title, not only within my history, but now I think firmly established within the UCP lore of my DNA. And it's on your list as F117A, but it's more colloquially known here in the UK as F19 Stealth Fighter. Why did they call it F19, George? Well, prior to this game coming out, the F117A was still classified, and no one really knew. Like, people knew that America had a stealth fighter, but they didn't really know what it looked like, how it worked, or what it was. And around this time, images started to break, or slightly before, probably off the back of the Gulf War, if I'm honest with you. So images started to break of the F117A, this weird angled fighter. The angles are there to deflect radar, so radar needs a straight angle to come back on. Getting to super nerdy here on a game that's really it has got this detail, forgive
No, I
me.
didn't know that. Oh, that's
So
interesting.
that's why it's got all these weird angles. I do believe it's also technically unflyable if you were to like fit modern avionics to it, or standard avionics to it, because it's control surfaces for that reason. All the weird angles means I think if you tried to fly it without the fly-by-wire computer brain in it, it'd just fall out
Yeah,
of the
so I
sky.
said this. I think I saw somewhere there was loads of little computers that keep adjusting and keeping that flying. Is that correct?
I believe that to be true. Yeah,
Mm.
I mean, I'm no aeroplane expert, but this plane probably garners more interest because of its weird shape. Developed out the skunk works. I would say a lot of the triangular shapes that were seen around the Area 51 Mesa Desert were probably basically stealth fighter trials of people
Mm.
seeing a stealth fighter in the sky. Now, it's called F19 in some regions because at the time of launch, the F117A was literally vaporware. So they kind of built it around this F19. Now, classic MicroProse of this era, big box, keyboard overlay, and within there a manual, which is thick, it's bountiful. It's got like a quite a unique from memory piracy skip through section. So you in the back is a load of planes, like out of Jane's Guide, the silhouettes of planes. So you can, you have these silhouettes in military environments. So if you see a plane in the sky, you can quickly look down and work out which one it is. They use that section in the back of the manual to be the anti-piracy section. So it'd come up and it'd be like, C67 slot that or whatever it is. Yeah, that's what that is. Click, that lets you
Okay.
through. Also, in the back of the book, it was a smorgasbord of what these planes were, the enemy fighters that you'd be up against, and allied planes as well. What the loadout of weapons were, be it sidewinders, AMRAAMs, missiles, Mavericks, whatever it was. and obviously its bullet capabilities or its cannon capabilities. All that said and done, all that good stuff out the way, this game means so much to me because me and my father acquired this big box version. I've still got it in the loft somewhere. I think in the episode we did a few days ago, a few weeks ago, where we said what we'd save from a fire, I chose this or Jeff Crammer's MicroProse Grand Prix. Both those games hold a lot of weight in my mind and physically because the boxes weigh an absolute metric ton because of all the literature. And I would play this. My dad would have the keyboard overlay on the Atari ST. I'd have a joystick plugged in, so I would be the pilot. He would be the co-pilot, raising the flaps, adjusting bits on the plane as I needed them, selecting weapons, changing screens, locking on, giving it the full goose. While I was giving it the full Maverick keyhole on the joystick. Of course, I had a quick shot that looked like something out of a plane. It was basically the same as a little Atari one button blaster, really, underneath it all. But for that intents and purposes, I literally felt like I was flying an F-19 stealth fighter. Quite a good game in terms of its realism. So you could do like the easiest area to do was the Gulf. They didn't have as advanced weaponry. It's vector graphics now. It's probably running at about 6 frames per second. But I tell you what, at the time, night and day, like missions you could do. Took off, landing gear up, chase cam. You could see the plane from the outside. You had to plot your route in to avoid the worst circles of detection for your plane. So you had to fly low and like keep out the way of them. You went up in the air. I think you could only have the bomb doors open for a little while because they ended up becoming a flat surface. It would give you a radar signature, so you kind of had to pop up bomb doors, Maverick away, Harpoon away, Penguin away, or whatever it was, guided bomb, close, boom, turn immediately in the opposite direction or a random direction, so you weren't where your last ping was. And you had like main missions and secondary missions, and me and Dad would always pat each other on the back if we did the main. And it was, oh, we got a little bit of something left. And I remember we were playing in like the Cold War map, which was like top of Kiev or Kiev or whatever it's called now, and the Russian borders. And you would fly in, and you'd be taking pictures of sub pens. That was the hardest area because the amount of radar and missile sites that are in Northern Europe at the time, and probably even now, make flying aggressively across them a very difficult situation. So, yeah, I mean, it's these games from this era, especially on home computer, you do a lot of the heavy lifting in your head. You do a lot of the storytelling in your head. You do a lot of the kind of interstitial bits you kind of make up with a lore that you come up with yourself. But let me tell you now, if you could play this on like a 286 PC or get it emulated and running on a modern PC, you would probably still have a good time. I think you could put this up there, Jeff Cramman's. I think if you get that working relatively smoothly, even the first one, and maybe the World War One simulator that they did, Knights of the Sky. I could go on about this game for hours, RGT, but like I say, nostalgia probably wins the day. But I will always stand up and defend this game in a room of gamers if they kind of throw it down as like vector Tosh or very early 3D Tosh. Like, there's a lot going on here, pal. There's
Mm.
a lot going on here. Adding to that, now I don't think an F1178 has ever been landed on a carrier, but there were also missions where you would take off from and or land on a carrier. So you had the whole Top Gun vibe going on.
Mm.
And it had the ILLs or ILS, which was the instrument landing system. So you had to like get your lines crossed up as you were coming in. Absolutely a really great game. And then obviously when you finished the mission and before you started it, it had like shades of Desert Strike. I don't know which came first, chicken or egg, but you would have like a pixel art um pilot's waiting area, pixel art kind of a briefing room, and then at the end you had like the pixel art debriefing room, which was quite funny because I often remember like me and Dad laughing as the line kind of went straight to the area, then like left, right, up, down, all over the place as I was like taking on enemies and dodging out the way, and you get reward for your primary mission, secondary mission, and we had a few. We did have a few medals. We had a couple of purple hearts because I think we'd like had to eject over foreign territory and stuff. But yeah, you ended up with like quite a. If I remember, you had like a little pin of medals on your chest section as well. So
Oh wow.
there was a lot of stuff there, and it wasn't like modern Sims. They're very very straight laced. Microsoft Flight Simulator kind of half saddles that with the jobs system that you get in there, but everything between F19 and now has always felt very like bleached clean, straight in the plane. It's a flat menu, straight in the plane. Whereas this had the fun, maybe the lack of graphical power where they had to do these pixel art things, RGT, but and listeners, or viewer listeners, if you're on the YouTube listening to this or on YouTube Music, hello. Um, but yeah, like I said, I'll rave about this all day. I'm sure everyone's switched off because they're like, no, we came here for Mega Drive, George, and to be honest with you, you lost the room half hour ago. But I think I rest my face. I'm done. What's
Yeah,
your
so
first pick? Oh,
no, I was just going to say to you, so it was just sort of mission, but it wasn't actually like a story to it as
no,
such. It was
you kind
just
of,
missions.
that's correct. And you did, like I said, you did a lot of the heavy lifting in your own head.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, I always remember it being a popular game. I had a friend play it. I've obviously, as I showed you earlier on, I've got the F19 Stealth Fighter game for the Amiga.
Mm.
I've got a load of big box games, and that was one of them. And I've always kept it because I thought if I do power the old Amiga 600 up again, and I'll probably have a go at that after all what you've said and raved about it and your wonderful nostalgic memories. I was a great fan of Jeff Cramman's Grand Prix, MicroProse, F1 Grand Prix. What a fantastic game that was back in the day, and we spoke about that before. So, MicroProse were, for the
Well,
simulation games, they were the kiddies in the day. They were the guys.
Here's an aside for you. During my brief time in the Navy, I went for on deployment or like sailing out of British ports or whatnot. But a mate of mine, Richard Parry, he had managed to get a copy of it on floppy disk, and we would sneak down to one of the weapons areas that had a PC in it, and we got it up and running on this PC. I tell you what, flying it with keys and him trying to do the keys like my dad as well, while we're kind of sharing a massive keyboard, was I barely think we ever got it off the ground, if I'm honest with you. So, full respect to me and what dad were doing back in the day.
And I think as well, I mean, used to see people, I think my mate had one as well, but we sit in the magazines where people would get the actual flight sticks. And I
Mm,
think my mate had one just to give you that. I mean, it probably didn't do much more than what your quick shot did, but just to give you that bit more of
100% no. Mm.
just to give you that feel of a sort of a plain joystick. I thought, oh, what a great way to play, and ahead of their time as well. The things they were doing for 3D games, yes, the frame rate was slow, but nothing else was really doing it like this at the time. They were,
Not a thing. And as I said to you before, when I then transitioned over to Super Nintendo, chasing what I thought was a higher graphical fidelity, these games did not exist there. I
mm.
think they'd have been capable of running on there, but they did not exist there. I think you would have struggled with the keyboard. You would have struggled with all the different extra controls that you'd have had to countenance. But
And maybe even getting it all on a cartridge might have been a struggle. Whereas you could have multiple discs on your
yeah,
on
I
your.
think it was more than two discs. This bad boy. I think it was about four discs or something crazy.
I think it was, yeah. Yeah, no, interesting one. Yeah, great game, great pick. A lot of these simulator games aren't spoken about enough, I don't think, when it comes to retro gaming pods. But yeah, I think we've covered that one definitely. I'm going to jump in with probably quite an obvious one, but one I would have been playing and probably was playing at the time. And that is Streets of Rage 2. Um, Loved this game. Loved the first one. The first one was just similar to you, the nostalgic vibes, the memories from that game, the music, the start screen, everything. So when I found out that they were then doing Streets of Rage 2, I was like, wow, got to have another incarnation of this game. Absolutely brilliant. Now, me personally, I know everyone says Streets of Rage 2 is the best game, and probably technically they're right, that is the best game. But for me, that's always the first game that I have the fond memories of, but it's just because of the nostalgia trip. But Streets of Rage 2, you know, different characters and that, different music. But again, it's just that still one of the best games on a Mega Drive just for that complete games, for having fantastic music, for having fantastic graphics, for being a really good beat 'em up game. And I'd come off the back playing Streets Rage games, coming off the back like Double Dragons. Now, don't shoot me in the comments if you're a massive Double Dragon fan, but your early Double Dragon games going to a Streets of Rage game was just night and day. It was just,
100%.
it was a massive leap for me. And even to this day, I still find it amazing how they got those graphics on a Mega Drive stroke Genesis. The
Look,
colors, I always say back in the day, if you could get the atmosphere, I said it about Metroid, if you get the atmosphere correct with a bit of sound and the graphics, and same with Streets Rage, same with Streets Rage 2, they gave you that rough area. They gave you the look of the rough streets, and yes, you had rinse repeat with characters coming in, but even the music and when it would change for when you'd face a boss and the sounds, and I just think an absolutely brilliant game, a must have for any Mega Drive Genesis owner. I just think that Streets Rage 2, yes, it took the first one and took it even that little bit further. But what a game! Did you get this day and date back in the day, or were you
no,
later
I
to
didn't get
because
it
you were
then,
Super
Dave.
Nintendo,
I
weren't
didn't
you?
have a Mega Drive, and I came to the Super Nintendo probably quite late, really, or like a UK adopter. So he'd already obviously done its hard yards in other markets. But the famously, this is the kind of Sega's way of trying to get Final Fight there, and in some ways, like I feel like this eclipses it. Like I find Final Fight,
I'm with you on that. Yeah, yeah,
it's a different angle of view. It's kind of more side on. This has got like a semi-isometric look to it, so you can kind of move around the city. You move around, you kind of see a little bit more with the tilted camera. When you see Final Fight now, it just feels a little bit more Double Dragony, flat building, straight up, presented as flat sprites. Whereas these had colour in them with the neons, the flashing neons. You had the phone boxes, you had the neon coloured punks. So a lot of it to do was to do with the Mega Drive colour palette or Genesis colour palette. Don't get me wrong, but this game, like you say, RGT, you've got some fond memories of one. I came to them as an adult collector later on, picked up one and two and loved them both. I think two probably edges it slightly. I just think it's got that better look, but
yeah. It's the only reason I say I prefer one is just through pure nostalgia. My
nostalgia.
memories are
Yeah.
with it. But Street Rage 2 is the better game, and also I think it was one of the games where I actually sat back and thought, this actually feels like I've got an arcade in my bedroom. This is an arcade beat 'em up, and I'm playing it on my TV at home, my 14-inch TV. It
Streets
felt,
of Streets of Rage 1. Sorry, mate. Classic every move everybody does. Trying to work out the buttons within about 2 seconds of turning it on.
I,
Cop car pulls up.
yeah, don't waste your specials.
Oh no.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
think they're infinite at one point, and then you very quickly realise that these are not infinite. But Streets of Rage 2, absolutely brilliant game. I kind of had that edge of like that dangerous 80s gritty feel of where you kind of felt the 80s would go if it didn't ever stop or we hit the 90s. This is 92, obviously. I thought it was 93, but it shows you what I know. But this came out December 92, seemingly. I correct myself.
hmm,
I correct myself. These are the games we would have been playing.
hmm,
Um, it had that sort of gritty, sort of noir vibe that 80s movies had, like the movies that you would aspire to
Got
watch, like
Escape New York and all
Terminator,
that, and
RoboCop, Escape New York. It had that gritty, almost like
yeah,
we're heading to this like very thin razor point of decadence and danger, and narc was a big thing in that time, like say no to drugs, just say no. It was everywhere, and this game represented graffiti, street fighting, like little blades. It was, to be honest, it's a dirty little game for kids to be playing, but I tell you what, they'd have had a blast with it. I had a blast with it as an adult. If you're on the edge or you're messing around with any online bits and bobs or emulators or Nintendo Switch Online, I think it might be in the Mega Drive pack. You've got to have a go on this. I
yeah.
implore you. I think it
Oh,
made its way to Game Gear and Master System as well in slightly butchered forms, but
they still look good and play well. You wouldn't have been disappointed. I know you don't
still
quite
look
get
good
that
and play well.
soundtrack. The soundtrack's a bit more plinky plonky, but the game plays really well. And also, like you say, the soundtrack is phenomenal on the Mega Drive. With Yuzo Koshiro doing, and I think it was Kishwami, I think, who helped him with it. But
Oh,
absolutely,
mate, the soundtrack's gone down like etched in people's memories. And,
yeah.
you pop that on now and you
Oh,
pop
it's
that in
hairs
a
on the back of the
club
neck. Sure.
with you put that on in a club everyone's a little bit inebriated on whatever it is that they're into, you'd have a dance floor full of people. Half the people wouldn't know what it was, but it just
Mm.
that bass hits different in this.
And I've said before as well, go on YouTube and watch when those two, Yuzo Koshiro and the other guy went and DJ'd the Streets of Rage soundtracks live and played them live and sort of mixed them as well. And phenomenal. And just that start bit with that note where they go boom, where that all then
Mm.
start. Oh, and then behind them, that's got Streets of Rage come up with the start screen, and phenomenal, absolutely brilliant. And also you can see, like you said, with Sega wanting their sort of final fight, you can see they chucked everything in a kitchen sink at this. I
Oh,
mean,
oh yeah.
graphically stunning, soundtrack stunning, gameplay brilliant. I mean, Streets of Rage 2, I just remember getting it, putting it in, going, oh, how different's it going to be? And I suddenly see the different characters in, is it Blade, the guy on the rollerblades? Is he called Blade? I can't remember his name now. Um, and seeing him doing his tricks and bits and pieces and Blaze, weren't it? Was that the girl Blaze? I can't remember the names
Oh,
now,
I
but
can't remember the
just
intimate
having the
details of
different
it, mate.
characters and just thinking, oh wow, and then you were back on another journey through Streets of Rage. So yeah, Streets of Rage 2, amazing memories, very nostalgic. A game I could play and play and play again, never get bored of. A must own for Mega Drive Genesis. But yeah, can't believe that was 92. What are you going to pick next then, George?
Next up, a game that again I would not have had back in the day, but definitely picked it up after. My kids have had way more mileage out of this, but it's World of Illusion, starring Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck. Um, I find this game to be immaculate. You know, we went on a journey through Disney games on the Mega Drive, a little bit of a tie-up with Sega, proliferated into other systems, don't get me wrong, but the magic felt strongest. The magic and the charisma of the Disney characters felt strongest on Mega Drive. We talk Aladdin, we talk Pinocchio, we talk Jungle Book, we talk World of Illusion. And to me, the other ones have got praise and hype, Aladdin especially, obviously with its drawings lifted straight from the cartoon, or certainly, rotoscoped over those to get them into the game. But this World of Illusion, starring Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck, great little combo game, a co-op game that you can play with somebody else. The puzzles are really quite fantastic, where you interact with Donald to
Mm.
progress through the levels. Very, very beautiful in terms
Again,
of the
graphically stunning, and that game.
for the era, for what it was at the time, graphically stunning, hand drawn sprites, looking really good, rotoscoped in a way that just made the whole thing look and feel like a continuation of a Disney cartoon. And
Mm,
obviously sending in the two big hitters. I know in my household, Donald Duck was probably the more popular character. He's got a little bit more of an edge.
mm.
He's funnier, isn't he? And his animations in this are equally as funny. In terms of like getting deep onto it, into the levels, like, I've seen the kids get quite far. I've helped like one or both of them at times, and they've gone very quite far into the game. As you get a bit later on, um, you're going to be testing, as with all these 16 platform games, you're really going to be testing an adult's patience and skill level as you progress. There was often like difficulty spikes, or there were no guides, there was no internet. So if you kind of hit a brick wall, it was kind of console off, go to bed moment, try again tomorrow. And maybe you never got that far again, or maybe you passed it. But this game was what that was all about in my mind. I've had some fun with it. The kids have had hours of fun with it. And I recommend, if you're collecting for the console or looking for, I won't say this is a hidden gem, but it's probably not talked about as much in the zeitgeist anymore. When Mega Drive was current and fresh, this was a game that people were talking about in the playground. Even like 12-year-old boys were like, oh yeah, get a bit of World of Illusion. It didn't matter that it was like technically a little bit kiddie with Mickey and Donald.
Hmm.
That was in the bin because this game had it all, and it made your Mega Drive sing. No one's going to forget like the animations of Mickey getting to the edge of a platform and waving his hands and doing all that sort of good stuff. So yeah, look it out, guys. I hope it's not one of those George recommends where it ends up being 400 quid. I very much doubt it. I think you'd probably be RGT. Would you be safe to say you could get this with 20 quid and have some change?
I would have thought so. Yeah, I don't think it's one of the really expensive ones. I mean, if you go
Which I
cut,
find odd because I try and base some of my collecting and curating around. This is not always the wisest thing because a lot of the things on the back of the consoles were, and they were on flashback, but they were shit. But you look on the back of a Mega Drive box and think, hang on, what was Sega saying? What was Sega saying? This is on the back of those consoles. So look it out, add it to your collection. Black and white box art. It
um,
really is.
I just looked. You can buy that complete for 12 quid. So there you go.
What a crime, considering the jacked up prices of some of the Mega Drive games are absolute drivel, and I mean drivel. The fact this is 12
There's a
is an
reason they're rare.
absolute. It,
No one played them.
well, this is an absolute steal, and if you've got a Mega Drive, even if you get this loose cart, you add this in a little line of carts on your shelf, you'd feel pretty sexy about
I think
yourself.
so. I mean,
Yeah,
this game as well. I was at the age I was at the time. I wasn't into Disney. Never had been into Disney. Didn't really watch Disney films or cartoons. I watched some cartoons, but not really Disney ones. And I always thought, nah, I was at that age where, nah, that's kid stuff. That's little kid stuff, Disney. Then my friend got World of Illusion, played it round his. He lived down the road on his Mega Drive, and I just thought, oh, actually, this ended up buying it myself.
oh,
Um,
yes.
and playing it. And then it got this sort of it was actually it had gone from being a kiddies game, Mickey Mouse and the World of Illusion, to suddenly being you got credit scores in the playground if you completed this, because this is actually a tough game. If
That's
you're
what I'm saying to you.
It's
It's
a tough
brutal.
game. So it actually went from being, oh no, we don't play kiddies games, suddenly playing, oh, completed World of Illusion. Rubbish. No, yep, done it. Yep, done all the levels, got to the end. Because it is a tough game. But again, like you say, in our eyes at the time, that was almost cartoon quality. It was very playable, very well done.
It
Really
was kind
made the
of
Mega
the
Drive
it was
sing.
the Magnium man of like Earthworm Jim, Aladdin. It had that graphical animation kudos that lifted it above just being a Disney kid game, as you say, the
Mm,
difficulty aspect, the level design, also the graphical elements and everything else in between. Sound, let's not forget that. You roll all that in for £12 fully complete, you've got yourself an absolute rip snorter there.
yeah, yeah, brilliant game. Great choice as well, George. Yeah, very fond memories of that. Love playing it and worth playing today because if you're new to a Mega Drive or Genesis, you'll see what they can do with those two games because
You
that's really
definitely
showing the
will.
system off. Um,
What's your next game then, lover boy?
I'm going for one which I don't think people speak about enough. I know we covered in a earlier flashback one of there was supposed to have been a second version of this game. I don't know if it came out. I can't remember. But anyway, this is Dr. Franken.
Hmm.
I played the Game Boy version, but there is a Super Nintendo version, I believe. Dr. Franken, as you can imagine, is based on Frankenstein. Um, and you play the monster, but you're trying to find the parts which have gone missing of your girlfriend Bitsy, who's also a monster in various different disguises, and the way she's built. And you find them bits and pieces, and you have to find keys to get into different areas to get her bits to build your girlfriend back up. I played the Game Boy version, like I say, very good game. It's got the actual look of it looks very Castlevania with that sort of old manor house, sort of creepy, sort of castle vibe. But it plays more like a sort of platformer where you, like I say, you have to collect the keys, go through the different levels. Like I say, I know Super Nintendo version, I haven't played that, but on the Game Boy, a great game. I first heard of this because a work colleague of mine collected a full CIB Game Boy collection, PAL. And
Jesus.
yes, and this was his favourite game, and he had a loose cart of this, and he gave it to me when he completed his collection because he's got the full, like I say, completed box collection, and he gave me the loose cartridge of this, and I played it, and I thought, what a wonderful little game to play on that little monochrome screen. Looks absolutely brilliant, real good 8-bit platform and fun. Like I say, it's a good little twist on Frankenstein. And whenever you see these sort of top tens and that for Game Boy, people don't seem to mention it. They'll mention some of the big hitters, but people seem to sleep a bit on Dr. Franken, and I think that's a great little game to play.
I'll be
Um,
honest with you, mate. That game didn't. I I fantasized about not in that way. Well, the law will write itself, I'm sure. I used to look at this game in magazines like Games Master and those early kind of multi-format mags. I would sit and dream with my Atari ST looking at these pictures of Dr. Frank. And even on a Game Boy, it didn't matter. It had something about it. I think the art style, the sprite quality, it all kind of fed into what felt like a premium product. So yeah, very,
and if and
great
if you're
choice.
and if you're only if you don't mind just having cartridges, this is cheap. You'll pick this up for a fiver, maybe even less.
Mm,
And that's a great little game to play. Really good fun. But if you like your handheld gaming and you've never heard of this, give it a look, Dr. Franken. Because although it hasn't got the nostalgia for me, I've had some fun on it on the Game Boy, and it even plays quite well on my Hyper King Retron 5 on the big telly. You can play it on there with a Super Nintendo controller. Great little game. But
nice.
yeah, yeah, give it a look. Do you want to do any honourable mentions, George, before we hit the
Oh
news?
yeah, I mean, there's a few. I think the honourable mentions is my job now, isn't it? So let's have a little quick look through what we got going on. So within the time period, December to the '93 era that we're up against. So December 1992, pulling out Mega Man 5. Uh, got to shout out Final Fantasy 5. Shakan the Forever Man because that box
Mm.
art will live in everyone's mind. Fatal Fury 2 is probably worth a shout. Um, Shinobi 2, The Silent Fury. That's probably needs to be talked about. F1 Circus 92. Someone message in what that's about. I don't know quite what format that was on or whether it had a different name in Europe, but quite intrigued to someone let me know what that's about. Tiny Toon Adventures, Buster Busts Loose. We talked about sort of graphical quality and animation style making its way onto home consoles at the time. That was up there. Um, I think there was another one or two I wanted to shout out. Mario is missing. And I think that's me done, RGT. So please mop up the blood of what I've left if there's anything for you there.
We had like Street Fighter 2 Turbo. That was when we get into various different versions of that. I remember, like I say, I always felt a bit inferior because I had Street Fighter. I wasn't really into one-on-one fights, but I had Street Fighter. But my mate had the Super Nintendo version, which with the button layouts on your dog bone controller was way easier than three buttons if you didn't have a six button pad on your, which you felt a bit inferior with that. But yeah, so that was out. Magic Knight and Air Combat 3. I think you've probably covered most of them, I think.
Good.
Yeah, I think you've covered most of them. So yeah, there was a good selection for the start of the year for gamers, especially with their Christmas money to get some games and that in. So yeah, there was a great choice there. Um, yeah, I think we'll jump on the news, shall we? I think it's time
Definitely.
we got on there. So we scoured the very darkest back pages of all the gamer mags and even delved deep into the interweb to bring you what was the latest stories in January 1993. First up from EGM magazine again. These guys are brilliant when you're looking at your older stuff. The headline goes Sony and Nintendo hatch CD plans. Sony and Nintendo caught many people by surprise with the announcement of a games console which Sony plans to release next August. The machine combines a SNES with a CD-ROM drive and accepts both SNES cartridges and CD software. Nintendo plans to make a CD attachment for the SNES, which will be fully compatible with the Sony system. It's also slated for August launch. Nintendo is also working with Philips to establish a format to make SNES CD-ROM software compatible with Philips CDI equipment. This will be welcome in the light of the many CD titles already made by Philips. Now, a short article, but obviously this was before all the drama between Sony and Nintendo, which scorned them into making the PS1.
This
But
must be somewhere in the middle of that
it
drama
is because
because
you're
it's
getting
got
both
both bits
stories.
of news.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So
that's why I thought
to
this was intriguing because, as they were obviously getting both stories, so they've printed it out as one, like, oh, they're working with Sony and they're working with Philips, and you
yeah.
think, oh, yeah.
Well, just to, if you're new to Flashback or you're new to retro gaming, and it's a story as old as time, and I'm not going to kill it to death here, but as the article says, Sony and Nintendo hooked up to make a Mega CD, Sega CD equivalent for the Super Nintendo. That was going great guns, seemingly working. Obviously, if you want to do a little bit more research, people actually found one of these later in time in a skip or something within the last sort of 10 years, I think,
Well, no,
RGT
I
from
think
memory.
there was actually a guy who, when they made like, I think they made about 80 prototypes.
Yeah.
Um, and when that all fell through, Sony, he was a middleman, so he held the tech in the middle. He dealt between Sony and Nintendo, and when that all went skew with, Sony said, "Destroy them all. They all need completely destroying, crush them. We don't want nothing to do with them." And he'd left one in a box. When he left the office, he put the
Mm.
box in the loft and forgot. And that weren't till he found it, didn't think nothing of it. And then his son was talking about the story years and years later. And then he went, "Oh, I've got one of them." I was the middleman between the two and pulled it out, and rest was history. And they took it on a tour, didn't they? And sold it off in the end. But yeah, that was the only sort of Sony, Nintendo, PlayStation sort of thing. But yeah, and yeah, and they were going to work together, and then, like you say, Nintendo suddenly went, "No, we're working with Philips now." Um,
And obviously the end of that story is Sony then took that prototype away, made not many changes by all reckoning. So it shows you what an absolute beast this would have been, and would have put the SNES on a little bit of a different platform. But obviously, that rework machine became the Sony PlayStation, and Nintendo sowed the seeds of one of their biggest competitors in the fallout of this deal. Now, cozying up to Philips didn't seem like a bad idea. I don't quite know what brought that along. Maybe it was the more established CDI stuff. Maybe it was a plethora of games that they had sort of bubbling away. The CDI, I talked, I think, in many episodes how me and Terry Blow would stand outside of Dixon's and look at a golf game on this CDI, and we'd convince ourselves we were looking at photorealistic graphics through a snot stained window covered in like teenage snot drool and whatever else a teenager produces when he's looking at something pretty fantastic through a glass. Um, yeah, don't bear thinking about now, but it did look good versus your standard home computer stuff. But once you started to put it through the ringer a little bit, these things started to fall apart. You saw that they were just video clips played on a pretty garbage background or similar. So yeah, it's a sad story, but one that equally so has a lot of happiness in it, because at the end of the day, we were able to get a whole new manufacturer in the gaming sphere. Um, and the CDI Nintendo crossovers that happened have been much lauded for their destruction of some of the Zelda lore, for their sort of disrespect and pretty ropey looking graphics that maybe look good at the time squeezed on a CD, but when you see them now,
oh,
um,
it looked like they made in Microsoft Paint.
they absolutely do. RGT took the words right out of my mouth, and I think that for that reason they've aged like milk. And yeah, I mean, good luck to you if you want to collect for that system. Knock yourself out. But
Well,
yeah, great story.
Nintendo doesn't even recognize them as Zelda games. They don't recognize them in the lore at all. They don't. Yeah, they don't even mention them. Even in any Zelda games, when they do a timeline, the CDI games are missing off that list.
Oh, if I ever was lucky enough to work at Nintendo and we're doing a Zelda game, I'd be like, no, we got to squeeze a nod into the CDI somehow. We got
Uh,
to. We've got to. Uh,
um,
next bit
I
of news. Oh, carry
Oh,
on,
sorry.
RGT.
No, I was just going to say, I could see why Nintendo done it, because they were thinking that CDI was going to be the multimedia everyone had in their house. If you can stick games on that, you're going to sell millions. It
Mm,
didn't quite work out like that. The CDI I was the same as you. I remember seeing one in the Dixons. I didn't see a golf game on it. I see one in Dixons thinking, this is the future. This is that multimedia, everything all in one under your TV. You turn the remote on sideways and you use it as a controller, and
correct.
suddenly, and it was just this sort of, fantasy look at what the future
Mm,
was, but it didn't quite turn out like that. It didn't really have the game and power to be a decent games machine. It didn't really do anything else that well either, and that sort of faded away. And obviously, the rest is history. We got the PlayStation, and why it went. I mean, like you say, though, if they had have made that, and it's weird if you look it up if you hadn't seen it. Look at the pictures. That is a Nintendo PlayStation with a CD drive underneath, and then it's got the cartridge slot on top, so you could play all your old Super Nintendo cartridges. But then if you had the power of a PS1, I mean, this would have been a system and a half. I
Oh
mean,
my God, in that time. Oof,
that would have been,
don't bear thinking about.
no, I don't. But yeah, but like I say, as it happened, they made Sony rather riled, and the rest is history. But yeah, what we got next then, George?
Well, next up, also from Electronic Gaming Magazine Monthly or Monthly Magazine. Oh wow, you've sent me the eye test, have you? Look to the East by Mark Cameron. Trends in the early 1980s. Trends in the early 1980s, the Atari 2600 was the system of choice for anyone who wanted to play video games at home. There were other machines, ColecoVision, Mattel's Intellivision, Intellivision, and other systems from Atari, but none remained as popular as the 2600. Later trends shifted to the Nintendo 8-bit system. This followed a period of decline in the video game industry. The public wanted more out of their home systems, and the companies had a problem delivering. Now the trends have shifted again, this time to 16-bit systems, namely the SNES and the Genesis, aka the Mega Drive. The public is still demanding more from their games, but now the companies are in a position to deliver. Bigger games are being designed all the time, some on cartridge and now on CD. There are innovations being made in graphics, sound, and user interface. At their trade show in Tokyo, Nintendo announced a new 3D graphics chip for their Super Nintendo. This chip, based on the highly publicized RISC technology, will allow programmers I don't know what's wrong with me today, RGT, to create such effects as texture mapping, shading, and real-time 3D perspective. Games utilizing the chip should be available in Japan in early '93. There's also been a step taken in user interface with the SNES mouse. This product is currently available in both the United States and in Japan. While only a few projects have been announced for the US market, Japan is preparing quite a few more mouse games, including Simant and Populous 2. Another mouse game that marks another breakthrough for the Super Nintendo is Royal Conquest. This game from Gelco is the first to offer fully Dolby surround sound. It will be made available in the US under the name King Arthur's World. It's advances like these in home gaming that keep the hobby alive. Can virtual reality be far behind? Sorry, listeners and viewer listeners, but these grabs from mags can sometimes end up being a little bit
It's not
hard
the
to
best,
read.
to be honest. That was hard
So
to
I
get that.
was using my brain to make up words that I couldn't read, but I think we got there in the end. What a great overview of the gaming world. The first two paragraphs really just to bump it out till we get to the point in time where we're talking about the Super Effects chip or the RISC technology, the SNES mouse, and nice to see King Arthur's World, which from memory is like a little real-time strategy game that also had the aforementioned full, would have been Dolby Pro Logic 1 at the time, surround sound. But very interesting. The Super Nintendo mouse is probably most commonly associated with Mario Paint these days, RGT. But when I was playing on my little emulation R66 piece of shit, I noticed that SimAnt and a few more sim games that I ever thought possible on the Super Nintendo library on there. Totally unplayable on the aforementioned piece of feces, but certainly a nice place to go and check out some of these peculiarities. King Arthur's World has always been a little bit of an obsession of mine. Magazine grabs back in the day, the talk of the surround sound, this, that, and the other. It had something about it, so lots to be said there. RGT, what's your take on the first three paragraphs? I think we can dismiss. But the SNES mouse, more importantly, the Super FX chip, which may or may not make a bearing on my Ray choice if he's got it in his boot. What's your thoughts on all this?
For me, I put this in here because I thought that was one. It was interesting to see they were then talking about, Super FX chip coming out, and hopefully that would be taking games further. But also, this is a gone era now. This is when you had a system and these companies were constantly battling with each other to push that system further, whether it be chips in the cartridge to make the console more powerful, to CD add-ons, to mouse support, and they were almost just tit for tat, taking each other on to try and push these systems as far as they could go. Nowadays, your system is your system. You get online updates, but that is it. And then you buy your next one. And I miss these days of, you can make how weird would it be nowadays if you could make your console more powerful by putting another disc in it? Do you know what I mean? It's
Or by sticking some sort of weird add-on on the back and connecting it with a snake's wedding of wires to itself with an extra power supply, and then
yeah,
attaching that then to a whole nother format of drive that you then plug in with another myriad of wires. I mean, if you've got the Tower of Power, if you're lucky enough to have one of those, and I think me and RGT both are lucky enough to be owners of the Tower of Power, it's a thing of beauty from a nostalgia point of view, but to a modern gamer that doesn't know about this era in gaming, it's going to look like the most junky, pirated piece of garbage you've ever seen in your life. I'm seeing it through the eyes of like, wow, 32X and a Mega CD. Mate, that Mega Drive is singing. You ask someone else to come in, my kids for an example, they're going to look at it and be like, I'm cool with it that you are cool with it, Dad, but
what the hell is that?
what the hell? It is
Yeah.
Super
Why do you need
Nintendo.
9 power plugs to power it as well? Because you
Exactly.
can't put them next to each other in a power strip.
You got to admit Nintendo with their mouse and like, the shooty gun thing. I can't remember what it's called now. It's not the Menacer, is it? I can't remember what their version is. The Super Scope.
Super Scope, yeah.
They were less egregious over at Nintendo Towers. They kind of hid the technology. Obviously, we had the FX chip, and then Sega quickly noticed that and hurried to bring out the SVP chip with their copy of Virtua Racing for
Mm.
the Mega Drive, not the 32X version, the Mega Drive version, which bizarrely is one of the only games that won't work in the 32X, which always
Yeah,
makes
it's
me
mad.
laugh.
It's crazy.
But yeah, if you've got the Tower of Power, you've got to bin that, and that's surprisingly cheap. That was a £5 game back in the day or giveaway, and now I shouldn't imagine it's much more on the Mega Drive version. But if you've got the 32X, you're going to want to get the proper Virtua Racing for it. Although mileage may vary, you'd need Digital Foundry to point out the differences between the Mega Drive SPV version and the 32X version. We've got there's loads of differences, barely.
Barely,
Um, Barely for the extra money you chucked in at that. If you've got a 32X and you don't have Doom or Star Wars, then you might as well just burn it, if I'm honest with you. Um, I'm standing by it. Uh, yeah, I am. Yeah, so there's lots to be said here. They were experimenting in different ways. Super Nintendo was the Mega Drive famously had its stereo sound, but the Super Nintendo was probably the first to get to surround sound, which I find odd because the Pro Logic signal carries down the stereo wires. That's how Pro Logic works. It kind of
mm,
filters a sound level that's already in your stereo and is able to, through a bit of technology in your hi-fi head unit, flip that to your back speakers and give you kind of like let's say didn't even have a subwoofer or a center speaker. So yeah, it was a step up from quadraphonic if you're a hi-fi specialist. And in fact, here's a boring story. I used the quadraphonic setting on an amp that I'd found somewhere to enable me to play my N64 games in kind of a bit of a poo-poo version of surround sound as well. So I was
nice.
getting quadraphonic surround. Quite cool on games, a bit off topic here, but quite cool on games like Donkey Kong 64, where you had a waterfall, you could turn around and hear it behind you.
That must have been
Uh,
game changing at the time, though. It must have been incredible.
uh, it was finding two additional speakers, and I think I had a little bit of uh, tape across a piece of carpet. Yeah, I mean, we've all been young once, haven't we? I suppose,
Yeah.
but I would hiss at that now. But it was a rented place, and we were making do at the time, and I wanted to experience the next level, but not go down to Curry's and end up dunking 250 quid on a surround sound system
Mm.
for occasional use. So Yeah, nice little bit of another great little technical showcase from the URGT there. Fantastic. What's
Yeah,
your
I think, and you think also with like Nintendo, it was that they were almost looking at the PC people thinking, well, what are these guys playing on PC? Oh, well, they're doing like, Microsoft Paint and they're, using a mouse, bits and pieces. Like, well, let's bring that. Let's bring that out. And they're always striving to keep bringing extras out, making it better, improving the system. You don't see so much of that now, if any. But I just love this era of these bolt-ons and just keep, you
Do
didn't
you know, they
talk
missed
to
a
your.
trick because they could have made Doom mouse compatible on the Super Nintendo.
Oh,
Message in if they
wow.
already had, but I doubt that. So yeah, that would have been pretty cool.
That would have been, yeah. But yeah, great era in time where add-ons were the thing. And if you had, like, say, the Tower of Power, or you had the SNES mouse and the what did you call it, the Super Scope and stuff, you were someone in the playground then. Um,
What with your one game and Yoshi's Safari, yeah, knock yourself
exactly,
out.
yeah. But you had a bazooka on your shoulder, so um,
Yeah,
got your
better
mum
than
to take
you.
a picture of you like Rambo in the living room on your beanbag.
Yeah, you don't want mum taking a picture of your bazooka in your pocket, do you? Not at that age.
Right, we'll move on. And the final article again from EGM, who are on fire this month. Bobcat challenges Hedgehog. Bubsy in Claws Encounters of the Furry Kind, accolade Genesis and SNES, will give a certain hedgehog a furry fight when it hits the market in March. Oh, how wrong they were. It features the same kind of high action and great graphics that kept Sonic rolling to record sales, and a catty sense of humour guaranteed to make gamers meow with delight. Bubsy Bobcat has to stop Earth's latest band of invaders, the Woolies from the planet Rayon, who've come to steal our yarn balls for some reason. The Furmoisters travels a monster sized universe, recovering yarn balls and destroying woolies while avoiding a larger variety of enemies as he travels through 5 woods and 15 chapters before he reaches the final boss. The graphics are outstanding and the game world is huge. Bubsy can do over 40 animated actions, speak, and display many expressions and mannerisms. He flips, floats through water slides, flies, and explores each world while collecting yarn balls. The production team is headed by senior producer John Cosmo Mech Warrior Skeel and designer Mike Berlin. Lead programmer for the Genesis version is Mike Schwartz and Scott Williamson on the SNES version. Has Sonic met his furry match? No,
No.
he hasn't. This just made me laugh because they obviously hadn't played this or hadn't been paid because I
Well,
mean, Bubsy is
I
well
I
known
I
for
I, I want to cut in at the time prior to Bubsy actually hitting reviews and or players' hands. The marketing blitz for this was incredible. Every week I'll rock up and say, "Oh, this game was everywhere. It was on bus stops. It was on this. It was on that. It was the other." This game wasn't on bus stops, but it was in every magazine because it looked good on static screens. Therefore, it looked good in mags. It sold mags. Um, you saw some of it running, and you more often than not on shows like movies, games, and videos, and those little sort of 10-minute info bursts you got on like kids' TV back in the day about video games would always showcase him sliding down the water logs, and he'd be rolling around, and you'd be like, "Oh wow, this is like no other game I've ever seen." I really, I got quite excited for it, and then it sort of hit the ground, and the reviews were mid to poor. And like Bubsy is a character that makes my skin crawl. He makes he grates. There's an element in the world of when you have something or someone built by a corporation or built by men in a room who have overly thought about it, that you get something that's so try hard, it literally makes you want to vomit up your last meal, then re-eat it again, and then vomit up again. A bit like a cat being sick, I suppose, which is quite uniquely true for this scenario. I don't doubt that a lot of effort went into making this game look $1 million. I do believe it's aged one of the worst out of all those kind of 16-bit mascot games because everyone was off the back of obviously Mario and Sonic. People were desperate to have a go at making their own mascot, their own character that would go big time, that they could sell merchandise and teddies and toys from. And Bubsy had a damn good go, but when the fuse was actually lit, it was one of the most underwhelming fireworks you could possibly imagine. Probably went about 2 feet off the floor, fell on the floor, sort of fizzed out in a wet, dewy grass. Um, yeah, RGT, he saved me from the destruction of John Skill, Mike Beryl, and Mike Schwartz and Scott Williamson's fury by saying something positive about this diabolical car crash.
Well, I mean, it actually didn't review too bad. It had a few four
Did
and
it
five.
not?
No, I've got them up here, and there was a lot of 81 out of hundreds, 9 out of 10, 7 out of 10s,
Paid.
8 out of 10s. Yeah. But then you go to like Famitsu in Japan, there's like 4 out of 10s, 5 out of
There
10s.
you go, mate.
So there was a lot of 70s and 80s. I think this Bubsy really hit the floor when they tried to do Bubsy 3D, which was an absolute diabolical 3D game.
I
This
don't really remember this hitting though.
No, I don't think. I mean, because at the time, I always in the playground, if you had Bubsius, because your parents didn't understand that Bubsy and Sonic were different. You know, it's almost like they couldn't afford Sonic, so they got your Bubsy. That was that sort of feeling
Weird thing
around.
is, they probably paid more for this. So we're like, oh,
Yeah,
little RGT's done well at school this year. Let's get him Bubsy. Let's snub Sonic 2 and Sonic 3. Let's get him this.
listen, when I've tried this, this has that. No disrespect, this had a home computer feel. This had an Amiga platform feel. It looked like an Amiga game
100%.
and a European platformer, which at best are never that great. And it had that feel of a home computer European platformer that just didn't play great. When you played Sonic or you played your Marios, you come to this and think, this is a little platformer version of a.
Yeah, to me, like this didn't quite hit. You know, as I said before, a lot of people had a go at making something like this to rival Sonic. The only people, and you could put your own one forward, that really hit the nail on the head for me was Rocket Knight Adventures or Sparkster. Those games kind of like stood up. They did something interesting on the screen. The character was relatively enjoyable. It didn't have the edge of Sonic. It didn't have the ridiculousness of this. But, you know, from the box art to the gameplay, that kind of hit and stuck for me.
Yeah, and I think they're doing something different. They're making their own platformer with their own character. I know they're doing this, but they are obviously confident that they were going to knock Sonic off the perch straight away. Don't get yourself in that fight because you've lost straight away. And also, I mean, I would, from what I've played of this Bubsy, I used to quite enjoy James Pond games, and I'd rather play it over this any day because of the
Mm,
different character and the different things you can do.
I was going to bring, I was going to bring up James Pond, and I was also going to bring up Zool. You know, when you
Mm.
referred to like the Amiga-esque stylings, the
Yeah, yeah,
European stylings, you could group Bubsy into that trilogy in a way. It does feel like, you know, John Skill got up one morning in a dusty Birmingham estate somewhere and went, "Oh, I'll tell you what I need to do. I need to make a I need to make a comic book hero that the kids are going to love on console." And you can imagine a load of money men going, "Yeah, I'll chuck some money on that." They
mm.
chucked a lot of money at this, or at least a lot of time, and it's just one of those examples of it just not hitting, just not landing, sadly, in
Yeah,
my
and I
mind.
think probably the money men as well behind it have thought, hang on, they made millions off that Sonic. Make one of them. Make one of them. We'll make millions off that. And
Yeah, and those poor guys probably tried to write down a bit of
yeah,
paper like what makes Sonic good? Oh, character animations, fast levels, which they tried to ape with the water pipes and things like
yeah,
that, you know, quirky animations, rotating sprites, you know, all the things that really should have got us juicy at the time, but yeah, this did not get us juicy. This got us a dry, arid desert. This got us Gandhi's flip flop, didn't it? Instead of a deep wet drink.
yeah, exactly. You know, Sonic, when you release a Sonic 1 and 2 that were already an exceptionally good game to then try and come in and better that. Well, you're tatting on a game that's nearly already maxed what it can do. You're not gonna do that. Valiant effort, but nowhere near. But yeah, that was three interesting stories from Electronics Gaming Monthly from Sony Nintendo with the stories then starting to come out of the joint operations to make their Nintendo PlayStation, that we all know the outcome of that, right through to the add-ons that we were getting at the time for your Super Nintendo and your Mega Drive and Super Scopes and mouses and CD add-ons, and a great time to be a gamer. To finish up with what we were just talking about, Bubsy, the apparent Sonic killer that
Killer, yeah.
yeah didn't quite get to say quite, didn't get nowhere near that game. Valiant effort, but nowhere near. But yeah, so I hope you enjoyed those
Do
news
you know what
stories.
Bubsy reminds me of? What's that Simpsons one where they end up designing that dog that takes on Itchy and Scratchy, and it's just like absolute garbage?
Yeah,
That is what Bubsy is.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. Like you say with Rocket Knight Adventures, stuff like that, they done a similar game platform and bits and pieces. They had their own levels. They didn't try and copy levels. They didn't try and copy the look of another game, because if with a game that's already that good, if you're trying to better it by copying it, you're not going to get nowhere near it. So yeah. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed those news stories. Definitely of the era of January 1993. But it's now time for what we affectionately call Stingray's Boot. What's nestled between some counterfeit nabbies and a dodgy copy for Battle for Endor is some of the new releases for February 1993. Spring Stock. Whoa. How you seeing the raid this week, George?
Oh, I've run my mouth. I've run my mouth, and now I've written a check that my ass can't cash, and stepping out Ray looks like a very angry. I don't know what John Skeel looks like, but Ray's got out the car looking like John Skeel. He's got a Bubsy shirt on, he's got Bubsy joggers on, he's got Bubsy socks on, and he's wearing a Bubsy cap. He's smashing his fist into his open left hand like a menacing bully in the school ground of the 1950s. And Little Wayne, Little Wayne Ray has got out looking like Mark. Oh, Wayne, you bloody idiot. His name's Mike Berlin, and you've come as like Mike Benelin, a cough mixture bottle. Okay, look, I apologise to you both. Bubsy was, you're right, it reviewed better than I said, although I stand by Famitsu. They know a game. They've got credence, they've got quality, they won't be bought. Not by this Western dribble. Let's agree to disagree. Why don't I rent some games out the back and we move on? RGT, how are you seeing Rain and Way?
Well, I'm seeing Ray. He stepped out of the car, not a salon. I nearly said that. Stepped out of the salon.
Silent selectives.
He's got the mullet for it. But anyway, he stepped out in a long trench coat, which is a little bit worrying. He's opening the coat up. Hold on, hold on. Oh, I get you. You'd normally see a stereotypical market trader selling watches in his
Oh,
coat. He's not. He's got SNES mice. He's got all games of FX chip in. Oh, he's got a few super scopes on the right hand side. A Menacer. He's selling all add-ons in his jacket this week. So if you rent any
wow.
of your 16-bit add-ons now, Wayne
I'll
has
be
got
honest, I thought that was going to go down the flasher route. I thought you were going to describe little Sting hanging there in the wind, but
no,
I'm
no,
glad it
no.
was the other one.
Yeah, we're keeping it clean for flashback. Little Wayne's come out and he's had his hair cut into a mohawk and they've spray painted him blue.
Oh
Um,
God.
yeah, and they've used. Yeah, I don't think you should use car paint, mate. That's going to take a while to come off. I don't even think Swarthega would do that. Phoenix Knight's joke. And he's got a toy head of Bubsy that he's put ketchup round the neck on. Oh, so he's Sonic taking down Bubsy. Very good,
Fair play
very
to you,
good.
Wayne.
I love the
Yeah.
little red Converse. That's a nice touch to Sonic's boots as well. Very good. Yeah,
Mm.
well played. Yeah, I like that. I'll have a look at their add-ons as well in a minute, Wayne. What are you gonna pick out as your game you'd be hoping to play then out of the
I'm a
boot?
greedy pig. I'm a greedy pig. I'm taking 4 games if you don't mind.
Or hope you leave
Yeah.
some for me.
I don't know. You can pick up the bones of what's left.
Wow.
I'm going to take Microcosm. It's a Mega CD game, Sega CD game set in the human body. I was a big fan of the comedy, action, sci-fi film Inner Space.
Oh, I love
So
that
any
film.
chance to play
Mm.
that, as garbage as this is, I'll take it.
We were talking about this off air, weren't we? Both having a big long
Yeah,
box one that looks really awkward, and you can't put it on the shelf with your Mega CD games because it's a stupidly big
but
box. But
in terms of Mega CD games, this one
it
I
made you feel
went.
like the system was a bit more powerful, didn't it? It made you
It
feel a
it
bit
it did like flying through like a 3D rendered artery, I suppose, was like kind of something.
shooting
But
sort of blood cells and that. And
yeah, but the graphics, the background graphics didn't match the foreground sprites so well, so it did look a bit garbage. Well, I'm taking that anyway for nostalgia. Um, I've written TIT down on a piece of paper, which I think was Turtles in Time, but I'm seeing it now as a female appendage. Um, I'm gonna. Did you want that? Because I might leave that.
no, you can have that. Go on, you have that.
All right. Well, I'm taking that. Turtles in Time. What a great game on the Super Nintendo.
Fantastic.
A great um, copy or port of the arcade version. This one uses the Super Nintendo's rotational sprite scaling capabilities to ape the launching of the foot soldiers into the screen, which has always elicited a huge hurrah from surrounded teenagers as that was played. Um, the talk of the FX chip got me quite hyped for another game as well, RGT, if I may be so bold.
Hmm.
Uh, and that's Star Fox getting its Japanese Super Nintendo release in this month. So I'd quite like to pick that up. That's an absolutely great game. I had it back in the day. It felt quite special. Still plays great now, whether you're playing it raw on the Super Nintendo or you're playing it on Nintendo Online. And the final game I want to pick out because I'm being a greedy little pig. I
Thank
want to
God your
take
mic cut
X.
that out.
I'm going to take Star Wars X-Wing, the
Mm.
amazing 3D flight simulator. This made F-19 Stealth Fighter look like something on the Spectrum, but albeit that the PC Master Race, they got this game incredible pixel art takes on Star Wars and the characters in it within it during the levels, and then the great ability to fly around Star Destroyers, shooting TIE fighters, going on missions in different rebel ships was always and will always be an absolute tour de force in gaming and retro gaming, RGT. So tell me what your gaming picks are.
I am gonna pick just for it made me laugh at the time because there was Outrun 2019, and I remember thinking that is so far in the future we're going to be in flying cars and going to the moon.
Mm.
It's now actually 7 years in the past, but that always made me laugh that it was going to be a futuristic Outrun game that no one really talks about anymore. So yeah, I'm going to go with the Outrun. I am also going to go with, if I can find it on here, Splatterhouse 3.
Great choice.
Because Splatterhouse games were good. They were just that almost bit of a rip off of Jason Voorhees with the mask and stuff. But yeah,
100%.
one of the first sort of horror games I technically saw, if you can class it as horror. But I'm also going to go with Pop and Twinbee, which was the first time I'd ever seen what is now described as a cute 'em up shooter. Very
Great
colourful,
game.
lovely
Great game.
graphics on the Super Nintendo. Really enjoyable game. I love that game. So yeah, I think I'll go with them. I don't know if there's any more honourable mentions you want to chuck out there. What's available in this month there, George?
Honorable mentions is my job, so let's get stuck into it. Blues Brothers, the Jukebox Adventure. I mean, that did the rounds. It had some great kind of
Mm.
16-bit versions of the Blues Brothers songs. Didn't play particularly well, if I'm honest with you, but you know, every game that came out in this era that was tied to a license was a dodgy-looking platformer. Jaguar XJ220. That needs hyping up. That was a pretty interesting title on the Mega CD. Um, F1 ROC Race 2 Race of Champions. I think that's another rehash of probably Exhaust Note. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think I had it on my piece of garbage. I was looking at it the other day. The Simpsons Bart's Nightmare is well remembered. Nice to see Romance of the Three Kingdoms 3, Dragon of Destiny. And the last one I want to shout out is the Addams Family had a pretty good run of fun platformers. This one looks to be based on the Addams Family cartoon that saw some success in the 90s, not the black and white show or the movies, although from memory, it's probably going to rehash the entire palette, sprites, and everything else from the previous Addams Family games. Again, correct me if I'm wrong. But yeah, I think that's the honourable mentions done, RGT. What's your movie?
I am going to go with, let's have a look in the boot here. Oh, there's some movies in here, Ray. My God, where'd you get all these from? I'm going to go one from, which came out, I believe, in December 92. I'm going to go with Home Alone 2, Lost in New York. Don't mind if I do. Love it, Home Alone 2. What are you
I
going with,
have
George?
said before, and I will stand by this, that's the best Home Alone film, the second one.
I'm with you on that. I'm with you on that, definitely.
Just kind of has a little bit more to it, it's a little bit more scale.
Yeah, and it's
There's
it's that difficult second album that they done, and they made, in my eyes, made it better, which is
This
hard to
era
do.
was like full of like movies like that. Obviously, the one that springs to mind is Ghostbusters 2. Who would have thought you could make a sequel to that movie? Well, they did, and actually, in some ways, Ghostbusters 2, in my mind, actually stands up. Nostalgia is a powerful drug, because I went to see that at the cinema. So, I'm sure if you had Harvey Retro on here, he'd be shouting me down and calling me a heretic. But Ray, look, honest, I've got no more money, so I'm looking to take this on tick. Now I know you've pulled some favours. Look. I know you've been crawling around in Bill Murray's back garden because I'm going to take Groundhog Day, a film that, to be honest with you, makes a lot of sense to me in terms of like the ever repeating cycle of these shows.
My God.
But hopefully the listeners and listener viewers aren't thinking that too. So thank you for tuning in. Groundhog Day, a movie by I think it might be Robert Zemeckis. Correct me if I'm wrong. I might be wrong. It might be Egon's movie. But anyway, Bill Murray, I think it's Andy McDowell. Bill Murray's a news reporter that's presenting from the annual Groundhog Day in Wichita, I think it is, or whatever they call it, which is a real thing. But obviously it's a bit of a Scrooge story. He wakes up and has to relive each day and day, the same day. And some of the things that Bill Murray gets up to in this are actually quite dark.
Yeah,
The toaster in the bath scene is a particularly visceral moment. And then all the things he does to people, he almost uses it like his playground a little bit. To mess
to see
with
how
people.
far he could go and if he still wakes up on the same day.
Yeah, not only that, but see how far he could push people or see what things he could get away with within this 24-hour cycle. So, yeah, he starts off sort of reliving it, does the news, and then obviously as the film gets a bit later on, he just sacks all that off and does what he likes. So, yeah, then obviously towards the end of the film he returns. I don't want to spoil too much. Go check it out if you've not seen it. It's one of Hollywood's ever-present movies. I think it's there or thereabouts, sort of nostalgia and genuine appreciation from a modern audience as well. And actually quite a funny, heartwarming, enlightening film, despite the toaster scene. So, yeah, a lot to be said for that. Great movie. Thank you, Ray. Thank you,
Yeah, thanks, Ray.
Wayne. Sorry to the Bubsley developers. Hopefully we've made peace with each other now. Ray seemed to chill out quite a bit towards the end when I took 4 games and then took one on tick, which is going to be that's going to end up costing me an arm and a leg with interest in 1993
APR, his
2026.
Yeah, it's quite high interest. I mean, the last I saw, he was 14,000%, so it's going to cost you a few quid.
Wow.
Get remortgaging, fella.
Yeah, because I realised that I've still got the copy here now, which means it's there in 2026, which means that I haven't returned it, so I've got the late fees on top.
Yeah, I would
move on before anyone notices, please.
Definitely. We'll do a bit of housekeeping. As we occasionally speak about in this show. If you're new to it, we have our mothership show, which is the Unofficial Controller podcast. Go check it out. Over 300 episodes to download and enjoy over the past 8 years. We've also got our website, which is the unofficialcontrollerpodcast.com. Check out for all your gaming goodies and bits and pieces that are going on, and challenges and winners and all that sorts of stuff, reviews. We have an email if you want to contact the show, which is questions@unofficialcontrollerpodcast.com. So you can let us any questions you want, or anything you want to know, or anything about the show. Just send us an email. We have a TikTok, we have an Insta, and we have an X account. So check those out as well. Is there anything you would like to add, young George?
If you're listening now, know that I see you. I'm grateful to you, and you're making a difference. So please come join the family if you enjoyed this episode. We'd love to get to know you a little bit more personally. We're not beyond reach. I mean, Discord's probably, we famously know that's beyond my ability to really use properly. But if you want to DM us on Instagram or X or email us, I will come back to you as soon as I see it. So please get in touch. And is fan mail on for this episode as well, RGT?
Yeah, all the fan mail's on, I think. So.
Yeah, so they can click on the audio. If you're listening outside of YouTube Music, you could click the fan mail option at the top and send us a text.
And finally, just if you're on YouTube, please sub, give us a comment, give us a like, so you don't miss out when the shows are being released.
Yeah, because we're very aware that Flashback, especially on YouTube, is on audio, we do okay. But on YouTube, it seems to be like your guilty little secret that you don't want to like or share. We need you to like and share the living snot out of this everywhere, because we want more people to hear it. And if you've had fun, share it with a friend.
Yeah,
you want to sound like that knowledgeable guy in next retro gaming event. You drop the word Flashback, mate, and you're going to sound like an absolute legend. So
yeah, definitely. Definitely. Thank you very much as well. So, yeah, thanks for listening. Thanks for downloading. Thanks for enjoying the show as always. Thanks to you, George, for joining me again in January 1993.
Always a pleasure.
It's great fun, great nostalgia trip again. And just leaves me to say, Flashback, the games you loved, the stories you forgot. I'll see you next week, guys, and I'll see you as well, George.
Take care, RGT. See everyone. Thank you.